Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another set of six here, the Federation of International Touch. Chance to touch base with our community around the world. And tonight we are with our friends from Singapore. I've been joined by Chris Hallewell, the Singapore Touch President, and Derelyn Chua, the Singapore Women's Opens captain from the Malaysia World Cup. Welcome aboard, Chris and Derelyn. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Adam. Pleasure to be here.
Hi, nice to meet everyone.
Excellent. So, you know, the set of six, we're talking about what's been happening around the world during the COVID situation. That's something that's affected the community worldwide. Someone's got some music playing in the background there. It's a nice little touch. How has the COVID situation affected the country of Singapore, and what has Touch Singapore done to keep the touch community involved during the pandemic? Chris?
So I think we're kind of in the similar situation to everywhere, really, in so much as obviously COVID has prevented anyone being able to play the sport for quite some time. When COVID hit, it was right at the start of our league season. So we postponed the league initially, waiting to see what was going to happen, what was going to transpire. And then as the writing started to come up on the wall, where we realized that this was going to be something quite severe, we had to cancel the league and postpone all events going forward. So I think really for us, it's just been a case of, watch this space. We're into phase 2 of the lockdown lifting at the moment, which means we're just in the start of our return to play protocols, where we can have up to 5 people in a group training and a maximum capacity of 50 people at any one venue on any one field space. So over the last couple of weeks, we have released our phase 2 guidelines, which is articulating the return to play protocols so that our clubs are able to get started again. And then this week, our coaching director, Kyrie Rula, has released a coaching manual to help coaches and clubs to come up with ideas and concepts on what training and exercises they can be doing to try and keep things fresh. Because with, small groups of people, there's only so much you can do before things start to maybe get a bit monotonous or you run out of ideas. So what we've really been doing is just trying to make sure that we're giving people the tools to be able to train safely and efficiently, and giving them some materials to do that with. Fair
enough. And from a player's perspective, Derelyn, how have you taken to the lockdown period?
So the lockdown period is quite difficult for a lot of us because we couldn't contact our team. We couldn't see our teammates. So obviously we couldn't train, we couldn't do social, which is one of the main things that we do during when we're all off season. We all just come together, we play social touch. So I do know that some have taken to doing Zoom workout sessions online, doing fitness and things like that. So that's one of the things that we have to do. It's really boring. So all we're doing is just fitness. So next season, we could all be very fit.
Fair enough. And that's something that we found during these chats here, that we've had to look for other means of staying in touch. And that's I guess something going forward once we're through the COVID situation. It's another way that we can keep in contact with our teammates. And it's very important for not just the physical health, but also the mental health of our friends and our touch community, and being able to make and maintain contact through the period.
Yep.
So yeah, very, very important. So let's touch on the World Cup in Malaysia. So a great tournament for Touch Singapore, both open and seniors there for the 2019 World Cup there in Malaysia. 8 teams, a bronze medal. So were you guys happy with the results and the way that the teams performed? We'll start with Chris, and then we'll get the players' perspective, because I'd love to hear from Derelyn.
Yeah, I think the first thing for us was obviously that Malaysia's on our doorstep, and it allowed us to send a large contingent, sending 8 teams. I think it was the 4th or 5th largest contingent of teams that were sent globally. So, that was obviously fantastic for us to be able to send a large contingent to the World Cup and give them that experience to play and expose themselves to the higher levels. we obviously had high hopes of our Women's Open and our Women's 27s because they had previously medalled at the last 2 World Cups. And then our men's 50s became the heroes by coming back with the bronze medal, which was quite unexpected. But they've really committed themselves. They worked exceptionally hard, and that bronze was well deserved for those guys. And I think everyone kind of maybe expected something from the Women's Open and the Women's 27s because of that history. And they both performed admirably during the tournament with their results as well, with 2 4th places. So I think for us, we can say yes, it was a really successful campaign, and we probably extended ourselves as far as we possibly could, and that maybe left us a little bit light when it came to coaches, especially men's open or mixed open, who had player coaches, and that's something that we need to look at going forward. But I think all in all, we can say, it was a very successful campaign for us.
Yeah, fair enough, and a very vocal and well supported group it was too. The Singaporeans, we certainly knew where they were, and support was fantastic. Derelyn, you heard Chris talk about the weight of expectation there on the Women's Opens. You were the captain. How was it? How was it for you?
So obviously it was really disappointed. It's always difficult to lose, and all of us were really gutted when we couldn't medal this time around. So not to take anything away from Japan did really well. They have set the standard for the Asian competition. So for us on our side, I think Singapore, we just weren't good enough that day. Japan grinded us out. We sort of fell asleep a little bit during the game, and we just needed to keep to the basics. But I think that we're actually good enough to compete against Japan. We just haven't gotten the pieces together that day. But overall, I think it was a real honor to have taken on this role during the World Cup and to have worked with the coaches, the management, and players.
Yeah, fair call. And, like you said, it's disappointing on a personal level to have that result go against you. But the performance was nothing to scoff at. I remember the game very well, actually, the bronze medal game. Very entertaining, very, very tight. And, yeah, you guys will be there again. Don't worry about that. The way you carried yourselves was fantastic.
Yep.
So we've, one thing that we do in these chats, we have a live audience out there, and we've already had a couple of comments come in. We invite as many comments as you like. You can ask questions right through the process. Andy Sharps has already sent us a message there. Chris, he said, had the pleasure of playing against your men's 50s. Great bunch of lads, great team spirit. So that's a nice wrap from Andy there. And also somebody saying hello to William Hugh, sending a message, Sir Hallewell. So obviously got some followers out there, guys. That's great to see. So
it's
Chris,
great when your club mates
you're right.
Feed.
Fair enough. And so Chris, yourself, did you play over at the World Cup?
Yeah, so I played in the men's 30s squad. So we had a campaign where we didn't quite get to the heights that we'd wanted to. We finished 7th overall out of 8. A couple of wins against Fiji in our last couple of games kind of made our campaign a bit more respectable. But we worked very hard, and it was a great bunch of lads. So the overall experience was fantastic. I think for a guy like myself, who has been in Singapore only for sort of 4 years, to get that opportunity to play for a national team was really an honor. And so I've really enjoyed that experience to get involved and to represent Singapore.
Fair call. And we're seeing some footage here, some nice scrambling defence there first from the girls, and now they're well on the attack up over the halfway line against Papua New Guinea. So it's great to see that footage there from the World Cup. Derelyn, what's your background in the sport? How long have you been playing, and what's your representative honours? As we see, nice try in the corner there. Great hands.
Yep. So unfortunately in Singapore, we pick up touch pretty late. We don't have touch in the equivalent of the high school level. We have it only in our junior college level. So we tend to be about 17 or 18 years old when we pick it up. And that was when I picked it up. To be honest, I actually haven't played that much touch. I've been playing more union. So my background is actually more in union rugby. That's what I usually play. And then I went over to Perth and I got picked up by Southern District. So that was a real honor to play beside them. So that was when I decided, like, maybe I should focus a little bit more on touch. And yeah, so I've been playing touch more competitively, and this World Cup was my second appearance at a touch World Cup. Prior to that, it was only 2015.
Right. And you talked about the late onset or the late pickup of the game, but if we touch on the Junior World Cup that was in Malaysia in 2018, so the Youth World Cup, 3 finals appearances for your teams over there. What did your teams take away from that event? And did you see any growth in junior touch from those results, or are you looking for a little bit more in the next few years?
I think
Chris?
it was a really good opportunity to give the players the exposure to the higher standard. We are a small community, so the players play each other frequently, and they almost play each other weekly during competition and tournaments here in Singapore. So just being able to play against that different style of competition, obviously you get an exposure to playing against Australia, New Zealand, South Africa was really great for those younger players. And getting tournament experience, I think it was 9 or 10 of those players at the Youth World Cup went on to play at the Seniors World Cup as well.
Right.
I think we had 4 of those players in the Women's Open squad, and then a couple of the guys were playing in the Men's Open and the Mixed Open. So it was a really good base for them to get tournament experience, understand kind of what the international game's all about. And, there was players there that really kind of took to the style of play and were showing their abilities on that stage to be able to step up. And I think it was a really good foundation for those players to put themselves in the shop window with an opportunity to go to a Senior World Cup as well, and they performed very well. I think Lucy Elliott is one of the examples who played in the Women's Open. She ended up being the top scorer in the Women's Open squad over both the Youth World Cup and the Touch World Cup for both women's teams. So It just goes to show, that the younger talent is out there, and then they're being nurtured by the more experienced players like Derelyn over here.
Showing up the old girls when it comes to the try scoring, hey?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. But we don't mind that, do we, when we see the youth coming forward, and it makes you feel good a little bit about how you've been helping them as well and the progress. So that's fantastic. But again, it was a great opportunity, as you said, Malaysia right on your doorstep, and be able to give those youth teams the exposure that you did. How did you find it, Derelyn, from a playing perspective, having those girls gain the experience and then come back into the Opens ranks?
I think it was pretty good. Having these players at the Youth World Cup, they sort of understand the kind of pressure and the expectations. So having these younger players play in that kind of environment and then coming to the senior squad, it was actually pretty good, because then they would have picked up, certain types of code of conduct, what we expect of them. So they were actually really good. They were so hardworking. So I think that was something pretty amazing.
So T. Liang Sheng has also sent Daryl a message there. Daryl is a world champ. So great to have some support out there, Derelyn.
Oh, thank you.
So, I mean, touch has been a growing sport in Singapore for a few years now. You've been around a few World Cups as a nation. How do you see the overall growth of touch heading, Chris? And where are the biggest growth opportunities for the sport in Singapore?
I think Derelyn's touched on it earlier, is that within the local schools network, they're still coming into the game quite late. And I think the biggest area of opportunity is to get into the school system at a younger age. So we're currently working on, what the strategy is in order to get the sport introduced into the local schools. Because if you think about our school network here in Singapore, you have the international schools network and the local schools network, because you have the expatriate community as well, because Singapore is such a transient business center that a lot of people are located here for their business. So we've done a lot of work and we've had a lot of success with the international schools who have adopted touch, and we've got a really good support base coming through there. But within the local schools network, that's where we're facing the biggest challenges. And I think this is where we see the biggest opportunity. If we can start to get touch included within the curriculum in the local schools, then we'll start to see the local talent being developed from a younger age. And we'll start to see the balance of the squads more weighted evenly with local talent as well, rather than expat talent.
And where is touch played in Singapore? Is it how is the competition based?
So we have 2 leagues per year, and they're the summer and the winter league. They run for about 10 weeks. We have, 100 odd teams now in the league. So we've grown from 45 to 100 in 3 years. So the game is growing quickly, especially on the social level. And again, space is a real premium in Singapore, as you can imagine. And we compete with other sports for that field space. So ultimate frisbee, football, rugby, and touch, obviously, and cricket are all vying for this field space against each other. So we're fortunate to have a very strong relationship with Tanglin Rugby Club and Centaurs, who are able to provide us the field space. So for our league, we book out the field space at Tanglin, and they can provide us, anywhere between 4 and 7 fields, so touch fields, to be able to play. And we play on the half rugby field rather than a full touch field for the league. And then on finals weekend, when we have our big sort of show, we have a showpiece field, which is a full field, and all of the main grand finals are played on the full size field. So that seems to be the most effective way for us to be able to run the league. But we are space limited, and that's part of the challenge for us right now, is that we're at capacity for our league because we don't have enough field space and time slots to run anymore on a Saturday from 9 a.m. through to 8 p.m., which is the length of time. And, Singapore, it's 36 degrees day in, day out. So it's pretty oppressive, and there's not much shade around when you're down at the clubs.
And Derelyn, you talked about your rugby union background. Do you get a lot of transition between rugby union and touch over there?
Actually, usually it's the other way. So in Singapore, because we pick up touch in schools when we're about 17 or 18 years old, the transition usually is from touch to union.
Right.
Yeah. So we don't usually see the union players coming over to touch. That is a little bit more rare. Yeah.
Okay. And so are we developing players for the rugby union over there? Is that how they see it? Is there something that attracts them to rugby, or do they keep playing touch as well?
A lot of our players, we just keep playing touch, especially in the girls community. So speaking from the women's perspective, a lot of our girls just keep grinding and keep playing touch. But I think for the boys, the transition is actually union to touch. So we have had quite a few of the Youth World Cup boys who had gone on to play in the senior men's. They have continued playing touch, and I do think they stick with touch a bit more than union.
Oh, nice. Excellent. So there is opportunity over there. And I guess Chris has already touched on it, but Singapore, it is a very multicultural population. So do you find that, as you talked about, Chris, about the expats, and you want to have more local participation, how do you tap into that? How, have you found it hard to tap into the local, ethnic population and not have to rely on that more transient expat population you have?
I think we've seen the work that the guys have been doing on the ground with the universities, the polytechnics, has been really successful to developing the local talent. There's been the development of a youth tournament as well, the junior college championships. We've got the intervarsity championships, and that's really helped to develop local players. And we've seen a lot of success with that. I think that, like I alluded to earlier, the biggest opportunity is going to be the school system, and that's really, if we can get the ball in a hand of local children at a younger age, that's really our prime opportunity to and it's a longer term play, obviously, because it takes longer time for those players to come through. But the quick wins were to introduce the university and the junior colleges, and Terence, our general manager, has done a fantastic job of creating tournaments, and there's a group of senior players that are now coaching universities from our opens squads and our senior squads, who are now going in and coaching at varsity and level, and that's been really good to support the development at that age. And then the bigger opportunity, like I say, is going into the schools, and that's a longer term play. It's probably a bigger challenge for us to overcome the first barriers to get acceptance, and then developing the necessary pathways to grow the sport from there.
Yeah, fair enough. And I guess Derelyn touched on, Japan setting the scene for the Asian nations over there, and something that Japan have done for a long time. They've explored opportunities outside their borders. So they've travelled to Australia as a nation, come over for a state cup, come over for an NTL or several NTLs and several state cups. Is that something that Singapore would be looking to do in the future? And I know the Asian Cup is a great opportunity for you guys to step out on that international stage again. But when the COVID thing's lifted, is there any opportunity you might look to explore the avenues of a state cup or a national touch league or something similar in New Zealand or maybe Europe as well?
I think we do have players who do travel on their own to the New South Wales State Cup and things like that.
Yeah.
Whether we're going to see a Singapore team, we may see club sides traveling, rather than like a Singapore team, because we are always looking to develop our club players as well, so we do keep the clubs very close to us.
So it's about developing opportunities for a much larger playing base than just the select national team, and that's a great perspective to look at. And I guess the more opportunity you give to the greater number of players, the faster the sport develops as a national perspective.
Yeah, Derelyn's being a little bit coy there. She and the Singapore Women's Open actually travelled to Western Australia to the Perth Champs and won it. So I think that's a bit of a challenge for us now, because they've won the tournament. They're not allowed back.
Oh, well, there you go. Australia is a big place. We have lots of state and national championships over here. So maybe you need to try and fill the trophy cabinet. Take them all back.
No, it was fantastic so we were down with the squad, and it was great to see them competing in Australia, and to do so well at the Western State Champs was really good. And then earlier on this year, we did have two teams played at Perth again. In the men's side, we had a Singapore Barbarians team, which kind of was a bit of an invitational squad that came together in Perth, and I think they really enjoyed their tour. And there was a club team from Singapore as well that went down and represented in the men's 30s category.
Oh, nice. That's great experience. And how did your team find that experience, Derelyn, to go over there, not to take the trophy home, but just the experience of playing in an international event like that?
I think playing in Australia, it's always an honor, because the players there, they just have a lot of skills that we don't have. So it's always amazing to just go down there and see what the latest advances in touch is. So I do think that, like, for us going down to Australia, it's always a treat. We love playing there. And
what, was there any one key thing you took away from it, or was it just about the experience for yourself and the team? And what did you see when the girls returned back to Singapore?
So for me personally, from a player perspective, I did pick up what some of the newer trends in what some of the teams are doing in terms of attack and defense. So that was pretty interesting for me. And in terms of the players coming back, I do think that the Perth trip actually brought us together a bit better. So prior to that, we were still trying to figure out how we were going to fit in with each other. But in Perth, things sort of fell into place, and then that's when everything just started happening together.
Yeah, nice. And that's important, that camaraderie that you develop within your club sides like that, and the opportunities to take on. You're in a strange country, so it brings you closer together. You feel like you have to combine to be a part of something. So that's a fantastic experience that you've been able to take back to Singapore. So Chris, I want to ask you a bit more personal question now, mate. We're in isolation. When we get back on the field, what's the Chris Hallewell story? How are you going to score your first touchdown, mate? Run me through it. How do you visualize yourself scoring your first one?
I'm lucky if I'm ever on the end of anything these days, to be honest, when it comes to touch. But no, I think, look, ultimately we just want to get back playing again at the moment, and the sooner we can get the league moving forward, that'll be.
Yeah.
Club competition. I'll just be happy to be on the field, let alone scoring a try in the corner from a big long ball, which is, by the way, how it's going to happen.
And that's how it's going to happen. Yeah, on the receiving end of a nice big long ball, beautiful.
Yeah,
just holding your line like a good winger does.
Yeah, I'll be happily on the wing waiting for it. Yeah.
All right, Derelyn, over to you. You have some fans out there. We've had a couple of comments. Mark Go says, "Hi, Daryl. I'm a big fan." Danville Stone says, "Daryl the GOAT." So you've got some fans out there, Derelyn. How are you going to score the first one? Let's give us the big description of your first one.
I think Chris said it. I think we're just going to be happy to start running with a ball in our hand back onto the field. I reckon that my first try, just going to put it out there, it's going to come through a long pass. But no, I think we're just going to be happy just running out there.
Yeah,
so moving forward, because I'm closer to the 40-year-old end of the spectrum than 30, I think I'll be looking to develop some of my younger club players as well. So hopefully, I will play down a category and hopefully, be able to guide the younger ones along.
That's awesome. And you said you came into the sport a little bit later in life, but some of the experience you've gained, it's something that you want to give back now. And that's what's really interesting about our sport, the fact that you can play it at every age. You can play it, men and women playing together. Is that what you'd find a selling point for the game in Singapore? Is that something that you think might attract more players, Derelyn?
Yeah, I do actually think that touch is one of the sport that appeals to a lot of different parts of your life. So when you're younger, you're a bit more competitive, then you play in the Premiership division and then you play in a national team, you just want to compete. And then as you grow older and you kind of want to give back to the community, but you still want to be around your friends, you just want to spend your whole Saturday watching games, having a beer, and then just sitting around at the side of the field, watching the games, and then having a game or two yourself, that's pretty amazing. So I do think that this is one of the sport that is going to keep growing in Singapore, only because, as we get older, we just want to hang out with friends and just play a couple of games over the weekend. So,
Yeah, awesome. And again, if there's anybody out there watching that wants to ask a question of Chris and Derelyn, you have a great opportunity here to do so. Just touch base with us there through Facebook or on YouTube. And, we'll put the question to the guys. Chris, you talked about some of those other sports you're competing against for space, but have you developed any relationships with those other sports to have like a complementary effect where we supply players? Derelyn touched on the relationship between rugby and also touch, but is there any other sports over there that you might tap into to grow your player base?
I think probably in terms of the agility and the way the sport is structured, is probably the closest thing for us is frisbee. The dynamic, the pace, the field space, and the way players are required to move, and the coordination skills that you'd need. And there seems to be kind of two very different factions when it comes to the two sports at the moment. So we don't have a great deal of collaboration with those guys at the moment. I think it's kind of seen as a competitive set. Right. And people dip in and dip out. Some people will play touch for a while. Some people play contact for a while. They dip into frisbee, and I think everyone has their lane that they want to fall into, and I think it's a case of let people explore, play the sports, find out what really floats their boat, and what captures their passion, and then support them to play that. Because I think yes, we want everyone to play touch, of course, but ultimately there's going to be opportunities in many disciplines for people to succeed and develop. So I think from my point of view, we just want to continue to develop our own paths and work on our own structures and our own pathways, and naturally that should attract people to join us when they see how well managed, how well run it is, and if you're organized and there's a good structure, people feel comfortable to get involved in that. If it's disorganized and you don't get a warm feeling when you first start to play the game, then you kind of turns you off the sport. So I think the inclusivity of touch and the way that the community builds people in and are very engaging is probably one of the key aspects that attracts people to play the sport. So rather than poaching from other sports, I see it as us just doing a really good job of marketing the sport and attracting people to come and join the party.
Yeah, great response. And part of that also is that the officiating, the refereeing side of things, and the coaching. If we develop our officiating and our support networks, how are you guys placed there for? Do you have standalone referees, or is it a lot of player referees at the moment? And similar, as you said, with the coaches as well. How are you developing in those officiating roles?
Yeah, it's a majority player refs. We have a few dedicated referees. Obviously, we had Linda Scott based here over the last few years, who's been on the referees commission with FIT, and also was our referees director until recently here in Singapore. So Linda's done a great job in developing the level 1, level 2, level 3 referees and getting people into refereeing. And especially from a young age. So we've run a lot of courses recently. Obviously, Linda was level 6. We got Simon Burney level 6, and then we have a number of level 5s, level 4 with Darren, who is our new referees director, as a level 5. He's actually currently based in Australia before he returns after this COVID situation relieves itself. But he's meeting with senior referees in Australia, understanding how the latest interpretations of the 5th edition are being interpreted on the game level, and then how he's going to build that into our referee development paths. So I think we're in a good stead in terms of the infrastructure we've got for the referees. Yes, obviously it'd be nice to have more independent referees that aren't also player referees, but the situation for us is that everyone's playing, and so you'll quite often play 2 games, or and referee 2 games, or play 3 games, referee 1 game, and people are doing that on a Saturday, so that they'll play a couple, ref a couple, fill in where they need to fill in, really, to make sure that everything happens right.
Absolutely.
We can't play a game without a ref. So ultimately, everyone has to be there and support each other.
And what about you, Derelyn? Do you enjoy refereeing as well?
No, I actually do not have any certification in refereing, so that's not something I do. But I do coaching instead. So that's what I have chosen to do instead. I don't think I can just keep up with the running. It's just too much.
Too much, fair enough. But you both touch on there. It's all about participation. So whether it's playing, coaching, refereeing, it's all about participation and giving back. We've had an interesting comment from one of our friends over there in South Africa, funnily enough. So Tapiwe, hi to you, mate. Great to have you on board. He said, "Hi guys, head to head, South Africa and Singapore on par and extremely competitive. Regular fixtures would serve the 2 nations a great deal. So when travel comes back up, would Singapore be open to looking at a cost-effective reciprocal tour between the 2 nations?" It's an interesting outlook.
I think absolutely we would. I think, obviously these things are always finance related to be able to make it
absolutely
viable. And we can maybe talk about that when we look at the tournaments coming up, with obviously the Youth World Cup, Euros, etc., and sending teams to those. But we want to be able to play test matches as often as makes sense to, and making it affordable. We're still a self-funded sport in that respect. We don't receive any government funding as a national sporting association. So for us, it's about gaining sponsorship and being able to try and subsidize costs for players if we possibly can. At the moment, that hasn't really been a viable solution for us. So we've tended to host nations to come to play with us, and historically that's been sort of Japan and Hong Kong, where we've hosted those two countries over the last couple of years, which has been fantastic. Toru brought the Women's Open here, and the men's 40s also toured here before the World Cup. And then we had a mixed open test series against Hong Kong, which was fantastic. So that's been great. And, if the opportunity arises that we're able to send teams overseas, or teams can come, we're more than happy to host them. And, we'd love to tour, but what makes sense for us right now, most likely, is when we send teams to state championships, where we're able to, we can reach Australia very, very easily. And we don't have so many logistical challenges with visas, etc. as well.
Yeah, fair enough. But I know I have a great affinity with our friends in South Africa, and it is certainly a fantastic place to tour, play touch. The community over there is outstanding. So, as you said, and you'd welcome them to come to your country as well. So that's an opportunity. We've also had a comment from Lonnie Levy, a little bit closer to home, says that they've got some teams up there in Chiang Rai in northern Thailand. So check us out and bring a team up. You can PM him through Facebook. So plenty of opportunities opening up there in the Asian area.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the club sides will be touring as well. I know that they've toured a number of times to Shanghai and various other, and Hong Kong, etc. So I think the clubs love to take a tour over the weekends to some of these countries as well. So I think they're always open to invitations. That's for sure.
And Derelyn, from a player's perspective, where is it in the world that you would love to play a touch tournament?
I think for us, I think being in Orlando, because that was one of the places that was floated up for the Touch World Cup venue, the next Touch World Cup venue. Someone mentioned it was going to be in Orlando. It could be next to Disney World, and I think that's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, I think like when the Singapore contingent heard about it, you're like, oh, really? We got to go there 2 weeks before that and have some fun. Yeah. So I think that would be a really interesting place, because I think US, it's still growing there. It's a fairly new to US. I think that would be a pretty interesting place to tour as well.
So the next World Cup hasn't been decided yet, but they are certainly one of the countries that are throwing their hands up at the moment, putting their hands up to say, we'd love to host the World Cup. So maybe the opportunity for Orlando might come to fruition for you there, Derelyn. We don't control, what they put up as the venue as the host nation, but I know the facilities in Orlando are certainly, world class. Whether or not they can, afford them, I guess. But who knows, given the current situation, when that'll occur anyway. What about yourself, Chris? Where is it that you'd like to take some teams, mate?
I think Daryl's kind of hit the nail on the head. I think everyone's kind of had their eye on USA and Orlando. I think everyone's head got turned when that kind of rumor started circulating. So I definitely support any bid from Orlando. Let's just put it that way.
What about maybe Las Vegas? If they threw up a bit of a long shot for Las Vegas, is that another opportunity you might take too? I can see Derelyn nodding ahead there as well.
I think it would definitely be on the cards. I think the USA offers so much enjoyment, and there's so many good things that you can be doing there. And obviously you'll go for the World Cup and you'll go for the tournament experience, but I think a lot of people will also want to spend a little bit of time there and do some sightseeing and some tourism as well.
And all the other countries can use Singapore as a hub as they make their way to the World Cup or home.
Absolutely.
Maybe play a bit of warm-up on the way over. That's something that is open. We've had another comment there from Simon. Simon Ince, one of our regular viewers. He's, are the 50s still planning on coming to the Euros in 2021? England are just restarting the campaign, and we would love to see some guest teams over here for the Euros. So there was some talk about your 50s making their way to the Euros. Is that right?
Yep, they were all guns blazing for the Euros, obviously, and then it has been postponed. But as far as I'm aware, the intention is for the guys to still go over. I've seen some of the training stats of some of the runs that these guys are doing at the moment. They put most of us to shame, to be honest. They're seriously fit, these guys, and they're really up for it. And I think talking to some of the guys recently, and they were saying, that they didn't expect to obviously do as well as they did at the World Cup last year, and having tasted that success now, it's kind of given that new impetus to stay together as a squad, to keep working together, and now they've put they've cast their eye to where do we go next, and the Euros was the next one for them. And I think they want to renew that rivalry with Ireland from that bronze medal match. I think they've won all, and I think they're looking for a decider between them. So I think
nice.
They're definitely keen to go to the Euros next year if the tournament goes ahead, and I think they're well motivated for that as well.
It's one thing about our sport; we love a good rivalry.
Yeah, it was quite interesting where you have some guys with some Irish heritage playing against their countrymen, because, like I say, we have an expat community here, and some of those guys are representing Singapore against their home nation, as I was when we played England. Yeah. And it kind of means that a little bit more to you sometimes when you play against your home nation. You really want to put one over on them.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a score disallowed against England, and I was gutted because that was the only team I really wanted to score against.
Fair enough, I understand. Yeah. That's awesome. Oh, well, guys, it looks like that might be the end of our discussion. There's no other questions. If there's any other questions, shoot them up quickly. We still have Derelyn and Chris on board. But it's been great having a chat. I guess, is there anything, Derelyn, you want to touch on before we say goodbye to everybody? Just about the game in general and what it is that you love about the sport of touch football.
I think touch has given me a lot over the years that I've been playing. So it's given me the opportunity to make new friends, because I actually studied in Australia for a while, and I did touch whilst in Perth and then Sydney. And it gave me the opportunity to just go out, make new friends, get to know, go camping, get to know more people. And even now that I'm back in Singapore and I'm just playing with my teammates, every Saturday, you're just looking forward to it. It's just, the sport just has given me so much. So I am actually looking forward to be able to contribute back in any way that I can.
That's awesome. And you've been a great servant to the sport over there in Singapore. And I know when we were putting this chat together, everybody said you need to get Derelyn involved. She's a fantastic ambassador for the game. She's putting a lot back into the sport. So from the Federation's perspective, Derelyn, we thank you for everything that you've done for the game over there in Singapore. And, I look forward to catching up with you in person at the at an event somewhere around the world, maybe Orlando, maybe Las Vegas, or maybe Singapore. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Chris? What is it that you're looking forward to, mate, when we get back out there?
Look, I think I just want to get the community back together again and playing touch. It's a fantastic sport. It's really inclusive, and that's what we really enjoy, is being able to see our friends, play with our friends. As I said, it's a very small community here in Singapore, so unlike other countries where you see each other, once in a few months, we see each other once a week. and maybe twice a week, 3 times a week. And so just being able to have that regular connection again with everyone is something that we're really looking forward to. And, the sooner we can get some competitions going again, the better. We had to cancel our SITK tournament which is our international invitational, where we've had clubs from Australia and further afield coming to join us. And, we'd love to be able to be back in a situation where we could host those international teams and those international clubs coming back to visit Singapore and building the game here.
Yeah. Well, Singapore is certainly a beautiful country. And I know every time that one of my friends has visited, whether it was for touch football or just in tourism, they come back thinking, I'd love to take a team there. So once those opportunities arise again, we're putting it out there for everybody that's interested in traveling to Singapore for a touch tournament. Keep an eye on the Singapore Touch web pages and on their Facebook. And, keep abreast of when those tournaments are on. So the guys would love to host you over there. And I guess from the federation's perspective, the work that's coming out of Singapore has been recognised right across the board. You talked about the referees contingent, also from the player base, and just that the development of players that you've had over there. It's been talked about. I know that everyone says to me, well, Singapore are doing some great things. So keep up that great work, guys, and any support that we can give you or any other nations. I know from these chats, one thing that's really come out is that every country is willing to help each other out. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of development stuff that's already out there, and each country is willing to share that. So, if you do need a hand with anything, the Federation obviously can help you out there, but just knock on a few doors and people will be willing to help out. So I look forward to being able to do that, and I know that plenty of other people around the world do as well. So it's been great having you on board, Derelyn. Fantastic. And I look forward to catching up somewhere around. Chris, to you as well. Thanks for all the work that you're doing over there in Singapore and for our sport. And I guess next week, I'm not sure where we'll pop up, but we will be back online again for another set of 6. The Federation looking forward to touching base with everybody around the world. Stay tuned. We'll put an announcement out on Facebook and YouTube where we'll pop up next Thursday. But until then, I'll say goodbye and thank you for joining us, and enjoy a game of touch whenever you can. Bye for now.